You're listening to Walk It Out with Trisha Goyer, where we discover what it looks like to follow God and be swept away on the journey of a lifetime. Author of over 70 books, mom of 10, yes, 10, homeschooler and speaker, Trisha Goyer will explore what radical obedience to God's word looks like. It's time to hear from God lovers who've dared to say yes. Listen in to heart chats and learn how others overcame doubts and fears. Discover how God used ordinary people to impact others one step at a time. If you're ready to get radical, get going, and make a difference in this world, you're at the right place. Here's your host, prolific writer, world traveler, people lover, and mega nap taker, Trisha Goyer.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to Walk It Out. And we're going to be talking about kids and actually kids being kids today. I have my friend Jessica Smartt here, and let me tell you a little bit about Jessica. She began her motherhood blog, Smarter Each Day, 1 week after giving birth to her first baby. She and her husband live in beautiful North Carolina, where she loves hiking with the kids and steaming coffee in the afternoon. And her other book, Memory Making Mom, she was on here a while ago about that, but today we're talking about her new book, Let Them Be Kids. So welcome, Jessica.
Thanks for having me. As I said the first time I was on, I just really respect you so much. And so it's an honor to just get to chat with you and share this space with you.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's always like my treat to get away from all the kids for a little while and talk with a friend and
Yes.
talk about meaningful stuff. It's like my little break during the day. So I'm so glad that we could do that today.
Yeah. We have like 27 of them, right? So that can get probably.
Only 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so your new book is called Let Them Be Kids: Adventure, Boredom, Innocence, and Other Gifts Children Need. And when I saw this come through my desk, I'm like, this is so good. And I love how you consider these things as gifts,
Mhm.
especially like boredom.
Right.
Because I would say most kids don't think of that as a gift. And this last weekend, we went away to a condo in Branson, which is like 3.5 hours away. And literally all we did was lay around, watch movies, play board games. There was a hot tub there. And one of my kids is like, "Are we going to the mall or something?" We're like, "No, this is it. This is
Yeah.
our vacation." And it was a gift. So I would just love to hear more of why it was on your heart to write this book.
Um, well, yeah, I mean, the boredom piece for sure. I've been thinking a long time about just technology and how it affects me and how it's affecting
Mhm.
kids. So there's a big part of that, and just wanting to make childhood, the best that it could be for my own kids and kind of just explore. That's like my therapy, to write about whatever I'm thinking about for my own
Yeah.
family. But honestly, I can tell you the moment that I decided I would write this book, and I can even picture in my head where I was on the road and the stoplight that I was sitting at. I was listening to another podcast, and shoot, what Mo Isom. I don't know if you're familiar
Oh,
with her.
yeah. Yes, I
So
am. Yeah.
she wrote a book called Sex, God, and the Conversation the Church Forgot. I might be slaughtering that title, but that's the general idea. So she was quoting some statistics, and she said, I just remember being so jarred when I heard that she said, the average age a child views pornography now is 11 or
Mm.
10 or 11. I can't remember. I've seen both, but I just remember thinking like, "Oh my goodness, what has happened to childhood?"
Yeah.
And so the first inklings of this book was sort of like a little bit of that fight urge of just like, this is not right. But the book is not like aggressive. It's very, I think, funny, and there's a lot of lighter themes, for childhood. But that was the first, like, I just think in so many ways, in so many arenas, childhood is under attack, whether it's busyness, whether it's, internet and technology in the good and bad ways that can look. um just the stress of our, like, hello 2020, the stress that's
Yeah.
around us, that our kids are absorbing in a way that we don't even understand. The loss of play. So yeah, like, boredom is a huge piece of that, and I feel like you and I had that in our childhood in a way that our children never, unfortunately, will. So the book is about exploring what it looks like to give our kids the good gift of childhood in the world we're actually living. Like, not saying you need to, like, go live in a hole,
Yes, exactly.
and totally just never I mean, I use the internet, like, we watch TV, but what does it look like to still preserve the good things about childhood in this world?
Yeah, that's so good because I was just talking with a friend, and she's like, "You grew up in Weed, California. What was there to do in Weed?" I'm like, "Yeah, we grew up and there's nothing to do. Like,
Yeah,
there wasn't a movie theater for most of my growing up years, and when it was open, it was like one screen that I don't know, maybe 30 people. I don't know, it was this tiny thing.
yeah,
And I said, like, me and my friends would walk to the pizza parlor where there was 5 arcade games.
yeah,
We would find coins on the street to play one game, walk back, and it took an hour to do the walking thing. We would go into the
yeah,
woods. One of my friends lived, like, they had some acreage, and we would make like pretend houses with the trees and the bushes. And this would be our couch. I mean, we just did stuff out there because we tell our kids was on Saturday mornings. Like, that's when you got up and watch cartoons and stuff. We
right?
were just out doing stuff. And I do think that kids, if they don't have anything to do for 5 minutes, they're completely bored. And I'm like, no, go outside, do stuff. And they do need that, just that chance to use their imaginations without feeling like they always have to be entertained.
Mhm, exactly, and it takes a little bit of
Hmm.
work to get them there, it's not like every kid is gonna be like, "Yay, I get to color right now," like, because just like us, with our technology and just distraction-driven society, it takes me a little bit to, like, settle in and read a book, and there's that discomfort of what do I need to check, or I'm not being entertained right this minute. So I don't want it to make it seem like my kids are like, just it's so easy all the time to say go out in the backyard and play, and they just come up with all these things. But eventually they
Right.
do. They it just kind of you have to like get back in that mode, I
Yeah.
guess.
It's almost like when my husband and I went on a cruise, like we was like a 5-day cruise. The first day we were like, okay, what do we do? Like, we don't have any electronics, you're walking around.
Mhm.
By day 3, we're like laying in the sun for an hour and don't even care. Like, it's like, this is
Yeah.
so good. But it
Aw.
does take your mind, I think, time to unwind and get just you're so used to like technology and this and quick that and find this answer and watch this video that it does kind of take your mind time to unwind, to get used to being slow, to get used to being creative. And I think we miss out on so much when we are just telling our kids, like, here's a tablet, here's a remote. Just today I told my kids they couldn't
Absolutely.
have their electronics till later tonight. They've just been fussing, and I'm like, anytime I'm like, you're just
Mhm.
being on electronics too much, especially after the weekend we are traveling. So they had it in the car,
Yeah.
and so my daughters got out some stuff they had from a kit, and they're making soap in the kitchen. So they could have been
Mm.
like watching YouTube videos or whatever, but now for the last hour and
Right.
a half, they've been making soap and putting in scents. And when you do like limit things, it is amazing how creative they can be when given the opportunity.
Yeah. And you touched on something so important. I think a lot of times as parents, we're afraid to make those decisions, like you saying, like, okay, I'm going to wait. But I honestly think 99% of the time, deep down, they're wanting us to kind of step in and make those
Right.
guidelines for them. And I talked in my book a story about a friend who went on a field trip with a bunch of kids. I think they were like 7th and 8th grade, and they took all the phones away. And of course, the kids are like
Yeah.
twitching and like withdrawal the first like 2 or 3 days. But by the end of the trip, they didn't even want them
Right.
back. They were like, no, it's way more fun. Please just keep them, which is so sad to me, because I think we are scared to make those decisions, and immediately you do hear backlash, but deep down kids want you to
Yep.
protect them and to help them make decisions that are too big for them. So I just always want to cheer a mom on that has, is thinking about or has made a tough choice to say what I mean whatever it is, like, no, you can't have that phone yet, or whatever it is, they deep down do want us to be
Yeah,
the grown up.
absolutely. And I think when we give them ideas of things they can do too, not that they always have to do those things, but
Yes.
I always try to have art stuff and like soap making stuff and stuff around, or cooking.
Yes.
Sometimes, like, I don't know what to do. I'm like,
Yes.
well, I bought that brownie mix, or you can look up this cookie recipe. Just like even giving them ideas of things that they can do. It's not
Yes.
like have to entertain them the whole time, but we can give them ideas like, "What do you try this?" or "What about if we do this?" And
Absolutely. I think that's important to have stuff, it would be cruel to just be like, go
yeah.
sit in a blank room. Like, part of it is like prepping your surroundings to have at your fingertips some options. But when it's not working, I also have been known to say, like, okay, you can go shoot hoops, you can color, you can read this book, or you
Yeah,
can mop the floor. And it's
exactly.
amazing how appetizing the first three
It's
look.
so true. Or, sometimes I'll even say, "Well, do you wanna earn some extra money because you could dust this for me?" And they
Mhm.
love that kind of stuff too. Then they have, "We
Yeah,
could go get snow cones later if you do this." So even sometimes chores, if you're gonna like, "Hey, if you do this, we'll do we'll
absolutely.
get snow cones later." They're like, "Okay, that sounds like fun." Yeah, so and
Yes.
I found also times when they don't have electronics, then they do find times to interact with each other, where the electronics is
Yes.
often a solo thing where they're just doing their own game.
I know. Yeah. It makes me sad because, again, like I think about my own
Mhm.
childhood and like when I went on a car trip in college, I'm like, what did we even do? Like we
Yeah.
just talked. Like, we listened to a Burn CD, we stopped at a gas station and got peach rings, and then we talked the
Yeah.
whole time. Or like family vacation. I mean, you had like that one DVD you found in the rental home or something, or I guess at that point it was VHS, but like then we just were together. And I'm glad about technology. I mean, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
talking to you right now without it, but
Yeah.
but it for sure, it has hindered
Yeah, and
relationships.
conversation and really getting to know each other. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the other day when my husband we took 2 cars, we went on a little weekend trip, and my husband spent 2 hours talking to one of our daughters who was right in the front seat all about being in the Marine Corps, and she just thought it was the best thing ever.
Mm.
It's like once he started talking to
Oh,
her, she didn't care that she didn't have electronics. She was just in the
yes.
conversation. I think so many times we forget that kids do wanna hear that. They wanna converse with us and enjoy that time together, and we often don't.
Yes.
We don't do it. And I love how, it's boredom, but it's fun, it's safe once they realize like, "Oh, wait, it is kinda cool talking to my parents or doing these activities with my
Mm.
sibling."
Absolutely. And I think we've all learned that probably a little bit during
I was gonna
quarantine.
say that too, yes.
um Yeah, so which I've had enough of quarantine, just for the record. I'm not saying it's discouraging, but one of the gifts I've seen kids out on their bikes so much, or playing sidewalk chalk, or you know, just families eating dinner together because they're actually home. So I hope maybe we can retain some of those gifts when the world really opens up, which
And I
surely
think
it
so many
will.
times we say, "Oh, I wish we had more time together," and then all of a sudden we did, which I agree with you, like, we
Mhm.
saw parents out with their toddlers, like, in the middle of the day. I'm like, "I've never seen this up and down my
Mhm.
street before."
Right?
And then for us, like, we
Yeah.
baked bread together. I had a sewing machine for 2 years that I hadn't even pulled out of the box. My good intentions to teach my girls to sew. Well, quarantine, I taught them all how to make
Mm.
aprons, because all of a sudden
Well, you actually are
no, no,
superwoman.
we did it once. We made aprons. But, you know
But you can
yes.
make
Well,
one.
home ec, 8th grade. Learn how to make an
Yeah.
apron. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Which, side note on that, my daughter has there is the most fantastic book, and if I send you the link, can you
oh,
put it in the
absolutely.
notes, because it's like a sewing kit, that sewing book kit that I found on Amazon. And my daughter, who's 5, but she's 6 now, but when she was 5, was making these adorable little
Mhm.
projects. So it's the perfect like beginner, and I am not like you. I don't have a sewing machine and I can't sew aprons, but this was a good
Good.
entry.
Yeah, definitely send me the link and we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, and again, just it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, well, let's do this because we have more time or making time. Like we don't have to go back to the busyness that we had before if we have this extra time during quarantine. Like we can keep it up. We don't have to, continue
Yes.
running around. And I think that's important. And I love how, you talk about thinking back to what were special memories during your own childhood. And like for
Mhm.
me, I loved, and it was very rare, but when my mom or my mom and stepdad did an activity or like a board game with us, I remember those
Mm.
just being really special moments. And so growing up, my older kids, we would start playing board games together. And now my 2 adult sons live in town and they will come over and still play board games. at least one night a week with me. And so
Oh.
it's just not even now. Like, of course, we want them to enjoy now, but I think it is when we're building relationships with them, when we're talking with them and spending time with them and playing board games with them, it does build that relationship that can carry on even when they're adults. And so, I have
Yes.
31, 28, and 26 year olds in addition to all these kids at home. And I'm like, okay, this really does matter, not just for now and like their
Mhm.
mental health and all that for now, but for the future
Mhm.
too.
Right. You're making all of those choices are like little coins in the bank for them. And that's sort of touching on the first book of Memory Making Mom, but the one message I just felt like I wanted to, tell myself, and then other parents, because those choices are hard. Like board games, oh, that sounds so nice, but in the moment, it's like I have so many dishes to wash. I'm super tired right now. These two kids have been fighting all day. Like I don't want to go play
Yeah.
trouble. Like but, it matters. Like you're saying, it really does make a difference and it really does matter. And so just kind of digging deep and investing in that way, we're not going to regret that
Right. Yeah.
time.
And now I'm the one going, "Hey, you gonna come over for a game?" Because they're not gonna cry
Yeah.
if they lose now that they're 28.
Wow, that must be nice.
One other fun thing that I thought about that I like until I read it in your book, I'm like, "Oh, about pets. Let's talk about pets a little bit." Because so many feel like there's so much work, and why do you think that pets are good for kids?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even have any of the fun ones because we have allergies. So my kids would love like a big dog that sleeps in their sheets and all of that disgusting stuff, but we've just done like simpler ones. Right now we have two lizards that are just near and dear to our hearts, even mine, which I can't believe I'm saying. My husband walked by and I had one out like holding it and I was like, he was cold in his cage. He was like, "You are a different person than I thought you were going to be." But seeing it what it does to kids just to have something, there's the responsibility element obviously, and just to have something to care for and to love, I think that can be so
Mhm.
crucial to childhood. And my nephew has a goldfish and I thought, the poor guy, like he needs a real pet, but they loved that thing and they would notice, how he act. They were telling me about his personality, which I'm like, I didn't even think goldfish had personality. But he was theirs and they cared for him. And so, finding little critters, my daughter will, find some lizard or bug that she wants to try to keep alive and all that stuff. Like it just looks funny and silly, but it really does do
Mhm.
something in the whole making of a
Yeah.
child. So just letting them have that space, even if it's a
Yeah, it's so
hamster.
true. We currently have, 2 dogs, 2 guinea pigs, a rabbit, and a bird. So
Oh
they go to
my
your house,
goodness.
and I think did a video the other day. It's me sitting down, I have a guinea pig on my lap, grandkids running around, kids running around, there's, like, 2 dogs. I'm like, "This is so ordinary life." Yeah, it's
Actually
a
a
zoo. It's,
zoo.
like, literally a zoo. But I think I totally agree with you that it is caring. Remember to care for them and feed them and teach them
Mhm.
tricks. Oh my goodness, my kids are so into teaching our dog tricks. He does the most amazing things. I'm
Oh.
like, I never would have thought to spend. They'll spend hours like teaching him how to do these tricks, and so it is fun.
Well, and I don't know if you were going to bring this up, but I did mention you in the beginning part of the book because I remembered, I guess reading, no, it was a podcast that you did, talking about just how your girls you saw
Hmm. Hmm.
healing as they kind of reach back to some of those
Yes.
childish, I'll put in
Hmm.
quotes, behaviors. And so, in the same way that probably having a pet is really therapeutic, um, and kind of like gets at the inner child, like I thought that was such a powerful and encouraging example. And I can't remember I'm so sorry, but I can never remember the ages of what all your girls were when they came
Yeah.
because there were so many. But weren't there some that
Yes.
were
So
older
11 to
and through
15 were the
like
ones. Yeah.
okay. And but they're like in the podcast that I can't remember which one it was, but I feel like you were talking about how even like
Hmm.
baking and coloring and like they that was healing for them, right? Like
It was. It was complete, and even, like, playing baby dolls and stuff that
oh,
they didn't really get to do, and especially, like, even one of our girls, we got her as she was 5. So we've had 5 all the way to 15
Mhm.
adopting these girls. And like she wanted me to like rock her like a baby and pretend like I was feeding her.
Oh.
And the therapist is like, this is like healing for her. Like
Mm.
she needed that. And to see, 13-year-olds sitting down and playing with American Girl dolls and stuff, like they miss so much. And going back to that childhood, those childhood times that they missed because they were in foster care and getting moved around and all the stuff, they really needed it. And I think so many times we think that kids that have to grow up quickly, that they'll be fine, but the therapist actually said like going back and playing
Mm.
and doing those things that they missed actually brings a lot of healing in their lives.
And I just think that's so powerful for people to hear because, there's probably a whole range of parents listening. And some of them may feel like, okay, well, we're kind of past like the Play Doh stage, and my kids already have
Mhm.
phones and
Mhm.
TikTok. And so, like, this is irrelevant. But I feel like what your story shows is that it's not too late, that you
Yeah.
can, if you had a kid that didn't ever really enjoy reading good books, like, you can still foster that love, or
Yeah,
didn't,
absolutely.
wasn't, nurturing, or didn't get a chance to really play outside. Like, even grown kids, even me, like, I love playing outside.
Yeah.
So I loved your story because I think it encourages any parent anywhere to let their kids be kids, and that it's not too late, and
Mhm.
you can't say like the ship has sailed and I shouldn't have introduced this, that, or the other, and now they're just old and mature and there's nothing I can do. Right? Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I still buy Play-Doh every beginning of every school year. Our youngest is almost 10.
Mm,
We still get out the Play-Doh. We still play all, do all the shapes and play all the
yeah.
things. Yeah, because I think it's so important. And our oldest one that we adopted, she was 15 when it was finalized, and I started homeschooling, and I was reading out loud to the younger kids. And even though she had her own curriculum, she's like, "Can I listen?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And she would sit there as we're listening, third and fourth grade readers
Mhm.
as I'm reading out loud. She would sit there for hours, and as the kids are drawing or doing Play-Doh, origami, she loved to do origami or to draw. And she's here again, a sophomore in high school, sitting as I'm reading Little House on the
Oh,
Prairie or these other books. But the amazing thing was, and she was doing her own homeschool curriculum too, but her ACT scores jumped so huge.
interesting.
They went from like an 18 to a
That's
26
insane.
in like 6 months or a year. I guess it was a
Got
year.
some good vitamins
Um,
around there or something.
yeah. Well, I think it's just it gives your brain time to slow down and in like take in the story and be creative. And it just wasn't about, well, again, she was in foster care and going to a school and all this. It was about learning as a family and taking it all in. So I think it even like did brain development. So
Yes.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
no.
I'm no expert except
Yes.
that to see the SAT score, I mean ACT score go that
That's
much
amazing.
is like something's going on. Yeah.
Well, and I think
You can put that in your next
I
book.
yes, I will. No, I'll remember that. And I think one thing I tried to say, and I'm not as far along as you, so I can't be quite as, definitive, I guess, in my own experience, but there's a lot of pressure on moms who are my age to like put them in preschool early, and kindergarten has
Mhm.
to be so academic, and they should be reading by this age, and like, oh, then not to mention, piano lessons and violin, and they need to be like throwing these pitches that are like actually minor league, skill, like,
No, yeah, yeah, yeah.
or they're going to miss out. And I think like you're exactly right about the developmental piece. I think there's an appropriate slow speed that kids grow up at, and not only should you not does it not really work to rush it, but I think it can actually do damage to skip some of that
Mhm.
stuff. And it seems like you're kind of like validating that they
Yeah,
just need to
absolutely.
slowly, like, let them be kids slowly, and they'll be okay. And that's reassuring to me because, I've got kids that play baseball, and I'm always like, should I give them these lessons or travel like across the country or something? But I think
Yeah.
research is showing that not just physically, but like emotionally and mentally, um, if you rush it, it actually can do more harm than good.
Well, it makes it a chore instead of something
Yeah.
enjoyable. So for example, like I didn't start writing till I was in my early
Hmm.
20s, but I grew up loving to read. So summers I was at the library and checking out books and reading, but it wasn't like if someone had made me sit down at third grade and like you're going to write a story, I would have probably hated it.
Yeah.
And there's no way later I would have wanted to be creative and write, because if it would have been like pushed on me as this major chore,
Mhm.
which I always love, like when I have my kids write creatively, I say I'm not going to check your spelling or your punctuation.
Yes.
Like just make up a story and you read it to me. So I'm not even looking at your misspelled
Yeah.
words, and it lets them just have fun with it. I think so many times when we try to make it them better player, better writer, too much does take the fun out of it.
Mhm.
And it's cool to see now that my kids are adults, to see like their interests. Like my one son took up guitar on his own when he was, I think, a junior or senior in high school,
Mhm.
and he still plays around with it a little bit. My daughter, who we never did foreign language in homeschool, like I think you're supposed to, but we never did. She ended up moving, and she's a missionary, and she's fluent in Czech. Like
Mm.
I'll hear her talking on a video call with a friend there, and I'm just like sitting there, my jaw is dropped because she's just rattling as fast as she can in Czech as she does in English, and I'm like,
Wow.
I never sat and had her do these language lessons, or yeah, I probably would have picked Spanish or something like
Yeah.
that, but you know what I mean? But she did learn to love. We had a lot of creativity in our home, and she just did it on her own as an adult. And I think so many times we think that I used to think this too, like our kids are empty vessels. We just need to push all this stuff into them, which really no, God has formed them. We just need to help them and mold them into who He created them to be, and those natural tendencies of things that they love will come out.
Absolutely. Totally. And that's the whole idea behind the subtitle of like it's gifts that you give
Mhm.
your kids. Like what
Yep.
do kids actually need? They need space to breathe. They need a loving family who is behind them no matter what. They need an outlet for creativity. They need to be able to go run and play outside. They need time. Like they can't be schlepped from
Mhm.
one thing to
Mhm.
another to another to another. Um what else? I mean, yeah, like adventure, the ability to like go have a little like just go do something brave, you know?
Yes.
We bought or my parents actually bought 30 acres and we are going to move there and build with my parents and my two sisters. So it's this like I'm like we already homeschool and well, now we're living
I
on a
totally wanna do that with
compound.
my adult kids. Yeah. I keep teasing them one day we're
Yeah.
just gonna have a compound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
I
we
love
I'm
it.
like, "Don't call it compound, please, like, can we say farm?" But it's just this massive they'll go and climb this magnolia tree or, like, put these little sticks together. I don't even know what they're doing a lot of the time. I mean, we make them we send them out with walkie-talkies, so I do kinda know, like, they're alive, but,
Yeah.
just little silly things, and they'll come back so rejuvenated and with all these ideas, versus drained. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's counterintuitive to trust that giving them space and time and freedom and just a hand and love, like that's the ingredients they need to grow. But we put all this pressure, and I think society puts this pressure to like they have to be do, 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 do. And I just don't think that's really healthy. And I think it will be revealed long term that it is already slowly, that it's just kids are
Yeah,
more depressed,
exactly.
they're more anxious. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I always say, like, 100 years ago, they were, like, working on the farm, and they were, like,
Right?
doing all the things, yeah. Or I guess longer than 100 years ago now, but, you know, I mean, kids have lived generations without all the technologies and foreign language classes and,
Mhm.
music lessons. Not I mean, if they're gifted and talented towards something and they want to do it, yes,
Mhm.
but yeah. And I love too, another thing you talk about, you have a technology manifesto,
Mhm.
which I think a lot of people talk about, and yours is like this, so similar to ours, that kids won't get a cell phone until they can pay for it. And
Mm.
ours is when you turn 16, if you have your money saved up, you can buy your phone. We have all these kinds of
Mhm.
things on it to make sure they're not gonna get on bad sites
Yes.
and stuff, because sometimes they don't even mean to. It just but and then they have to pay their payment every month. It's like, and everyone knows, so we don't have the 10, 11, 12, 13-year olds saying, when can I get a phone? Because like everyone, 16,
Mhm.
your money, you pay for your phone. And so I think so many times when you set those things up for kids and they just know like that's how it is, and it helps, like they've seen the older ones, those are the rules.
Yes.
Um, you talk about, as a rule, being on the screen is not on a list of regular activities. It's just knowing that, or they can't play first person shooter games. Like if they know the rules ahead of time,
Mhm.
then it's so much easier. Then you don't have to keep repeating yourself or changing things up or
Mhm.
doing all the things. And I think so many times we are afraid to set those boundaries, but once they're in place, like the kids just know that's what they are.
Right. Yes. So to the young mom, I would say, and you know, say input if you have some, but I would say, like, set this early and know clearly in your head,
Mhm.
like, what your family's stance is. But I also think, and this was really a passion of mine writing, like, I don't want a mom to read it and think, well, shoot, I've already fill in the blank. And so
Mhm. Yeah, that's
therefore,
good.
we're just doomed, you know, because I think one important part of parenthood and life is to be able to say, like, I made a mistake. I have new information now. I'm very sorry. I
Mhm.
feel upset about this. You're welcome to feel upset about it, but here's the new plan going forward. And I'm sure, like, I call it back the bus up. That's my official, like,
Back to that
and
stuff.
I
Yeah.
haven't had to do it with technology, but there's been things that I'm like, whoa, we've allowed this, but
Mhm.
we're making a new shift for our family. And don't you think, like, that's okay? And parents need to
Yeah,
know
it is
that's
okay.
okay.
Yeah. Do you trust God? Can he be trusted? Meg Apperson, author of Sky Full of Stars, says yes. Her memoir reveals how faithful God is, how he has a purpose for our pain and suffering, and how we can trust him even with life's smallest details. Pick up Sky Full of Stars wherever books are sold. And, you talk to the kids about the reasons for it and why, we thought this was okay, but or we can say we're seeing that, you know, seeing more bad attitudes if you guys
Mhm.
watch this show or do this thing or whatever. So we're just going to wait a while
Mhm.
until, we feel like it's a more appropriate time. And yeah, kids will be upset for a while, but
Yeah.
it's okay. They'll
They
survive.
absolutely will. They will be upset, and that's why one thing I say in that chapter is, like, how important it is to have a tribe of people that are doing what
Mhm.
you do. Like, do you guys have families that kind of also have that 16 rule? Because I bet that's really helpful for your kids if they don't feel like they're the only one.
Well, it's hard because our closest, like, kids on the street that they see the
Yeah.
most are the ones that have the TVs in their
Yeah.
rooms, every electronic, but we have friends we just made friends with, actually writing the book with Todd Tillman.
Yeah.
He won The Voice. Him
Oh.
and his wife have 8 kids. We've hung out with them, like, 3 times, but they have a big family, we have a big family. Their kids don't all have all the latest gadgets, our kids and so every time we're with them, our kids just love it because 'cause they're on the trampoline for an hour,
Mhm.
or they're running around doing
Mhm.
stuff, and they said, "It's fun having kids that also don't have
Yeah.
stuff," is the way they see it. But it is hard, like, the kids that are closest to us that wanna
That's hard.
play, come over, like, they do have, like, every electronic game, TV in their room, and they're like, our kids are like, "They have this." I'm like, "I know.
Yeah.
It's okay." Like, "You'll be okay."
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I got this from my friend who is a director of Young Life. You're familiar with Young Life, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
love yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Mhm.
best. So I sat down with him before writing this book to say, like, okay, you've seen the end game here of, like, all the
Mhm.
kids that maybe it hasn't been done right. Like, what would you tell to a parent who's young and wants to, like, really do the right thing in this current culture? And one main thing he said is that he's going to raise his boys to say, yes, you are different. His last name is right.
Mm,
You're right. And we are different. And so just to embrace it and know that, like, yep, you get used to it. We're not like everyone else, and that's a good thing. And so that's a
yeah.
mindset shift for people, I think, because we feel sheepish to say, "Yeah, I'm sorry. You're the only one, and I'm so sorry," and we feel apologetic, but instead to pivot and say, no, we're different. You're right. You are. Like, I believe in different bigger better things for you, and this is our family's vision, and you're always going to be welcomed here, and you're one of us. You know, that I think that can be so powerful. I haven't tried it yet with a
Mhm.
teenager, but
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there's always even talking to my adult kids now, there was things that they don't like. Looking back now,
mhm.
like, my daughter will say, "Man, when I was 15," she's 28 now, "I thought I knew it all, and I was so upset with you."
Mhm.
She goes, "But now looking back, I could totally see why you said
Yeah.
that." So it might not even happen right away. Like, they might not
Absolutely.
say
Yes.
like, next year say, "Well, mom, I really can see
Yeah.
why you had those choices
Right.
for me." But I guarantee, when they're older, they do look back, and sometimes they'll even tease me because, like, I didn't even let them watch The Wizard of Oz until they were, like, 14 or something because I was, like,
Uh,
scared of the
hey,
monkeys,
those are
and
scary.
they'll say, "Mom, seriously, you didn't let us watch Wizard of Oz." I'm like, "Yeah." So, sometimes I'll even joke about it, like, sometimes the things that
Yes.
I'm like, "No, you can't do that." But overall, they've said we could totally understand why you
Yeah.
were doing those things. And I think it does take maturing and for them to mature for us to understand. And one time I had this word picture because I can't remember what device our kids were wanting to get on a Snapchat on something. And I said, you know what, there's this friends and they have this house and they built this fence and their toddler was so happy, and but all these people from the outside were like trying to like get the toddler to come to the edge, so they built the fence higher and people are still trying to draw him out. And they're like, people need to call the cops, they need to protect that toddler. And then I said, well, this is actually like our rules for you. We know this is your safe place, but there's people out there that want you to come to them. They have all these things to tempt you to these bad places, and we're trying to protect you. Like, gee, mom, you totally roped us in. We thought it was about a toddler, but it gave them the idea like I'm doing it for a reason. Like, we're
Mhm.
trying to protect you.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people out there that want to draw you into danger,
Mhm.
that don't have your best interest in mind. And no, you're not a toddler,
Mhm.
but you can see like we are just trying to protect you. And so I think sometimes painting word pictures like that or helping them understand
Yeah.
or see things in a different way can really help them to see that we're not just trying to be the bad parent, or we're not saying that we don't trust you. We don't trust a lot of people out there
Yes.
that want to bring you harm.
Yeah, and knowing that they're yeah, like you said, they're not gonna maybe immediately be like, "Oh, well, thank you," you know?
Thank you so
And
much.
it's hard to be a parent today, right? I really think it's very, very hard. And I thought, I don't know if you're like this. Well, you've written like 7,000 books, so maybe you don't feel this way, but I just thought, "Oh, this is just going to change everyone's life. This book is just going to like, be like the new, whatever. What's the purpose-driven life? It's just going to be
Oh yeah.
and but more often what I found is I think like people are so encouraged to read like they're not the only one because it feels so
Mhm.
lonely sometimes to you do feel like, am I the only one who is not letting their, you know, daughter on TikTok or like doesn't go buy this. I don't even know like what the item of clothing that girls are wanting to wear that maybe you wouldn't want them to wear.
Crop tops.
Okay,
Let me
there you
tell you,
go.
crop tops are back.
Listen, that's not flattering for anyone. They're gonna thank us.
Yeah, they are.
But anyway, like I just would want to encourage parents who feel like they're just beaten down and run over by the garbage truck over and over saying no, 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 that you're fighting the good fight and you're not alone and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's so good, and it is. We need that confirmation because even when I'm, going through your book and I'm like, oh yeah, their media choice manifesto, whatever it is, it sounds a lot like ours. It's just like that confirmation
Mhm.
that okay, there's other people that are thinking about the same
Mhm.
things, that are trying to get the same results with their kids, and it just does give us that encouragement. Like,
Don't
okay,
give up.
yes, this is important. Don't give up. Yeah,
Mhm.
so good. Okay. Let them be kids, adventure, boredom, innocence, and other gifts children need. As we're wrapping up, what encouragement would you just have to those parents out there that are saying, okay, I'm hearing you, but what is maybe the first step that I need to take?
Um that's a really good question. The very first step. I mean, is it tacky to say buy the book? That's pretty tacky.
Well, I was kind
No,
of
no, no.
leaning in that direction.
First step, let's see. Well, okay, this also feels tacky, but whenever I feel like sometimes I'll look on Instagram and see people who are doing things that I feel like I should be doing and I'm overwhelmed
Mhm.
and that can make you depressed. So I guess I would say like instead of being depressed, to pray and say, God,
Mhm.
like, I feel a little nudge that I should make some changes, but I'm so overwhelmed and I'm already just exhausted with life. And I already feel like I'm saying no all the time. But Lord, would you show me, like, your ways are good and you're wise and you love these kids? Like, would you show me the next step to take? And whenever I have prayed that prayer, God has been so faithful, even if it's just something like little. I just think he loves to answer those kinds of prayers where we're genuinely saying, give me guidance. Like he says in his word that he will, that he'll, if we lack wisdom, we can call on him and he will give us wisdom. But I do think like secondary point is to somehow try to find a mom or a family that that's kind of doing your same thing and like really link arms and just get some
Yeah.
encouragement
Yeah.
real life. and maybe like make an investment to be around those people more.
Yeah, that's really good. And have your kids be around other kids that have the similar,
Yes, because they need to, just like
lifestyle and
you need to feel like you're not alone, they need to feel like they're not alone.
yeah. And I love that you talk about going to God in prayer for the next step because I think, definitely we're like, oh my goodness, I need to change this, and that.
Yes.
And not only will you be overwhelmed, but your
Yeah.
kids will be overwhelmed. When our daughters moved in from foster care, I'm like, I had the list, I had the chore list and this list and that list, and we're all going to get on the same page. It was so overwhelming that it was like emotional meltdown for them, which led to emotional meltdown for me. And after praying, God's like, okay, just one thing. Like start with
Mhm.
one thing first. Because anytime we make change, it can be overwhelming.
Mhm.
But okay, right now we're just gonna start with having family dinners, and for them, that was
Mm.
huge. Like they'd never.
Mhm.
I remember the first time we all sat down around the table. One of our daughters, who was 12 at the time, 13. No, I think she was 12. She's just like started getting teared up, and she's like, "This is what they do in the
Oh
movies. I
my
never thought
gosh.
like real families did that." And that was like for me, I'm like, we always have family dinner. And I realized like that is a step.
Mm.
So, just even a little step, I think. I love how you said that, praying ask God what the next step is, because even that little step can be a huge thing
Mhm.
for your kids.
Which, just as a side note, the amount of food it must take to have a family dinner at your house. Like, what in the world do you even like, 7 pizzas? I mean, what?
Well, tonight, okay, I'll just tell you. So tonight, my daughter and I want to make sushi. We've never tried it. So my 28-year-old is here. So we got all the stuff to make sushi, and we're like, no one else is gonna want the sushi. So we're making teriyaki chicken and fried rice on the side. So
That sounds
I mean, it
great.
does. It's like, yeah, it has to be like big old portions. I went out with my husband and I went with three other couples to Montana for 4 days, and I'm like, I'll cook up some rice. So I cooked up the rice, and they laughed 'cause it was this huge we ate on that rice for 3
Oh,
days. I'm like, "You guys, my kids would have eaten this all in one meal."
that's
I don't
so
know
funny.
why,
I
but
can't
they're like
imagine.
I don't even know once people move out, like, I don't even know how to cook for
Yeah.
less people, so
You're just gonna have to make 1 meal, and then you'll have the month. You can freeze it.
I think that's what will happen, like, I'm gonna cook the big old pot of rice, and we are gonna be eating on it forever.
Fried rice is really delicious, so you can,
It
leftover
is.
rice.
Yes, it's perfect. Oh, okay. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being here. Again, the book is Let Them Be Kids: Adventure, Boredom, Innocence, and Other Gifts Children Need. And where can people go for more information about this book?
Well, yeah, the book is on Amazon, Let Them Be Kids, and I'm on Instagram at jessica.smart, and smart has 2 T's.
Yes. And it's very sweet that you
That worked.
remind us that it has two
Yes,
T's.
well, you have to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
thanks for having me.
That was so much fun talking to Jessica, and I just love her heart for letting kids be kids. Now, what about you? What are your goals of parenthood? I'll be the first to admit that with my first three kids, I wanted them to live up to what I thought at the time was the ideal childhood, the sports, those classes like I talked about, play dates and co-ops. And over time, and as my kids grew older, I realized that the ideal childhood wasn't all these scheduled extra things, but really just the time we had together. And like Jessica mentioned, and she wrote about it in the book, which is super cool that she quoted me in her book. Even if you have older kids, whether they're your biological kids that are older or you've adopted older kids, it's never too late to make changes. Don't feel that, oh my goodness, I've messed it up. Cut back in those activities now that so much has been happening in the world where so many activities that we did have been cut. Use that time to have dinner as a family, have board game nights, go on a walk, go on a hike. Think of all these things you can do with your family and enjoy that time together. It's not too late. It's never too late. Now, my oldest son is 31. And I am so thankful for all those times that we rode in the car for basketball trips and went out to lunch and hiked together as a family, did family vacations because now we have a great relationship. And I still love getting together with my older sons who both live in town. not far from me and playing those board games. I so appreciate that time. And I just appreciate Jessica for sharing all the wisdom that she had too. And, as Jessica said, we're always kind of looking for a giant way to make an impact, but really it's those tiny things that take 2 seconds that really will matter in the long run. Now, our walk it out verse for the week is John 10:10. And this is a quote from Jesus, and it says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And really, when I thought of this, just think about and pray about and ask Jesus to show you, how can I give my kids a life that was to the fullest, not full of the things that the world says is important, but full of the things that will matter in eternity. And just today, I started a new tradition with my kids, and I started listening to Adventures in Odyssey. Now, this isn't a plug. They're not paying me for this promotion. I just remembered, like, what did my older kids enjoy? Something that maybe I haven't been doing with my younger kids. And I remembered, I loved Adventures in Odyssey. So we started listening during our school time today and did art as we listened to Adventures in Odyssey. And this is something that I'm going to incorporate into our homeschool, but you can incorporate into your lunchtime or breakfast time or bedtime. So think about things that maybe you enjoyed or your older kids enjoyed if you have younger kids, and start incorporating those things. And for me, as I prayed and said, God, how can I help my kids live life to the fullest? That was something that came to mind. So just say that prayer, and you never know what God will bring into your mind or heart. Now, let me just pray for us today. Dear God, I just pray for every listener. I thank you so much for those who are parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles or friends, that we have a heart for kids, and we know that we are trying so hard, and we shouldn't feel guilty if we've done things wrong. But Lord, I just pray that for each of us, me included, that you will just turn our hearts back towards home, towards simplicity, just that special one-on-one time that we can have with our kids, and not be so overwhelmed with all the to-do lists that we think we need to do. But instead, Lord, I pray that we'll turn to you to get the right motivation, the right heart for what we need to do. I pray for every listener. I pray for Jessica. Continue to bless her, her family, and this book. May it be a blessing to so many. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, friends, I am so thankful for you for listening to this podcast, for tuning in, for spending your time with me in these interviews. And if you enjoy it, remember to tell a friend. You can go and send them to walkitoutpodcast.com. We have all the links. And also look back, and maybe there's some podcasts that you missed that you might enjoy. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great week.
Thanks for listening to Walk It Out. Head over to the show notes for this podcast and all past episodes at www.walkitoutpodcast.com. If you love the show, share it with someone you know who can make a radical difference in the world. We love new friends. See you next time.